Quarter 3 2025 is over, and I gathered my top 9 lessons that are most important in terms of strategic cost. So I picked lessons where failure would create high impact and expensive mistakes like mishiring, emotional decisions, misbuilt product, and those that create daily leverage. Not only those lessons that are used once per month, but rather every single day. And the last method that I prioritize this is by those lessons that once they're learned, they will help me to avoid many more downstream mistakes and problems. And so I have about managing people, testing people. I have about how to do mistakes correctly and not to do them again within your team, and then how to recognize if you're emotional and then not making decisions, and then using a clarity check if your plan is clear enough or not, and also how to recognize if your plan is not working early enough so that you can avoid expensive mistakes by yourself. And then about the fact that you have to understand the pieces of a thing, and only then you can bring it as a whole. So, and then about persuasion, how to persuade. And second last is about me realizing this kind of dopamine slot machine behavior, seeking behavior. And the last one is about building product that users actually use, not just product that is highly valuable. So starting with testing people continuously without letting them crash their car. So my friend was saying that his people are not able to do X, Y, and Z. And he's like so surprised. And only later I realized that, well, actually, you cannot expect people to know kind of anything. And always when you work with new people, you have to expect that they don't know, and you have to test them continuously. And I did this, and it has been working really well. So I just test. I systematically probe what people can and cannot do through controlled tests. So not blind trust. So I give them something that they can do, which I can afford them to not do that. So then I can test if they can actually do it and how well they do it. That surfaces competency early, and it avoids cost, like hidden failures in the long run. So my steps are: never assume someone can do something until you've tested it. And then continuously test people to see their real skill level. And design tests so they can make mistakes without causing major damage. And then run those tests systematically, not randomly, but systematically. And then you measure results and update your understanding of the person's abilities. So, simplified, you have to understand you cannot expect people to know anything. And the only way you to figure out if they can do something is by making them to do it and then seeing how well they do it or not. If they don't do it, it's like, yeah. But, okay. So then the second one is that try connection between issues and principles that would solve those issues in the future automatically. I read this from a book, and I thought it was very wise on have two main discussions on issues. First one is to how to solve this problem, and then the second one is how to not do this mistake again. What principle can we put into place so that it will not happen again? So think meta. Don't just patch problems. Identify which principles, if embedded, would make whole classes of issues disappear. And so steps are when issues arise, follow two process formula. First, solve the now, and then how to prevent the future. So identify what happened and how to solve the current issue with the RP. If it's you, then ensure that RP acts and solves it. And then with the RP, once that is defined, how they will solve it, you analyze why the issue happened. Identify the core cause, like what caused it? Skill cap or system failure, what caused it? Okay. Then you define a principle. You define a principle that prevents this issue from recurring. And onboard the new principle to all relevant parties. Moving to the third lesson is that don't make decisions in an emotional state. One time I noticed that I was like, I need to make this decision. And then I was like, I'm pretty emotional. Like, oh damn, I think I'm very emotional. Like, I should not make it. And then I spent some time on researching and understanding how can I in the future as well identify my emotional state to avoid making decisions in that kind of state. So first, detect the emotional spike, and then you have to pause and reflect. Like, decide only after you cool down to prevent any kind of catastrophic snap calls. Steps are on high level, they are you have to recognize the emotional state first. Then second, you have to decode the emotional state, like why it happens. And then last, you have to decide only after you cool down. So how to recognize it is that you recognize your emotional spike. If you can recognize, that's good. You have to pause and name the emotion clearly. You can use 10 minutes, 10 months, and 10 years framing. So how will I feel about this in 10 minutes? How will I feel about this in 10 months? How will I feel about this in 10 years? If there's a lot of shift, it means that you're very emotional right now. And then check if I'm blaming or thinking in extremes. Like if I'm blaming myself, oh, like I did this, oh, like you did this. That's often emotional sign. And or if I'm thinking like I'm gonna die, like it's very extreme. So I'm very emotional if I'm thinking that way. So those are the ways to identify it. But the next is that you want to decode it. So write down exactly what is felt, what I feel. I feel anger. I feel happiness. I feel joy. What does that feel? Write down why it's felt. If there's a fear, what's the fear? What are you afraid of? Decode whether it's coming from ego, fear, or facts. Why are you emotional? Okay. Last one is do not make any decisions if you notice your emotional state. From major decisions, wait overnight. Basic rule. And decide only after the emotional state have cooled down. My fourth lesson is that use step breakdown to identify if your plan is clear. This comes from where I noticed that sometimes when I start to do something, I have like no clue on how to do it actually. And I didn't spend enough time on planning it in the first place. So then I could not be that productive in reality. Okay. If you can't break the task into clear delegate ready steps that someone else could execute, you don't understand it well enough yourself. So define the steps first, even if you're the one doing the work. So whenever you're doing something, before you do something, ask yourself, if I delegate this task with the steps I have in mind, could someone execute smoothly? If not, spend more time on understanding and breaking down the work in clearer, smaller steps. It doesn't it doesn't apply to exploring like research, strategic problem solving. Yeah. But if it's clear, then you can proceed. No issues, you do it. The fifth lesson is to recognize when something isn't working. So I can easily recall kind of many moments when I've spent weeks on trying to solve something that just wasn't working. And I never got it working, but I still tried. And I was biased by inconsistency bias and, you know, and then I was like, I need help, like how to solve it and how to not waste my time anymore. And I realized that you have to avoid sunk cost traps. You have to adjust or kill fast so your resources don't bleed into dead ends. And the steps are when you set a plan A, you also rule out a rough plan B. You define clear pivot conditions, specify exactly when and based on what you'll switch. Make sure that the pivot thresholds specific and measurable in number. If you can measure like this many days and this much progress we must have in order for us to continue, that's pretty clear. So when the threshold is getting nearer, then you have to specify the plan B. And when the threshold hits, you pivot decisively. And if you're not pivoting, you have to remind yourself of the sunk cost fallacy. Like it's gonna be so expensive for you to continue on something that is not going to work. Gotcha. And then about understand the details before managing the whole. I realized that, so before I thought that, well, I could manage a software product myself. And why I thought so? Because, yeah, if I want to do it, I can do it. No, it doesn't work like that. If you want to do it, you can learn the skills to do it, actually. So only after me learning, understanding the user problem, selling the idea to them, and then designing the idea, designing architecture, creating the software, and like planning it first, and then putting it all together into product. There is many steps that you have to understand in detail before you can make proper decisions on things like this. And so you have to know the ground truth of each position on the field. Like if you want to be coach, you have to know the small little details of each of those positions. Football coach should know all the positions on the field, so he should have played on the field himself. Because then only you can make very good decisions on things. So, all right, steps are when you'll be making decisions for a whole system, acknowledge it clearly and recognize that without understanding the pods, you cannot really make good decisions. And so you want to study each critical pod before starting in enough detail to understand how the system works. Stop once you have sufficient clarity to make sound decisions. So I think that wasn't that clear, but my point is that if you have to make decisions for a whole system, then as soon as possible, you want to study and start to learn the skills that all influence into the success of the system. Pretty simply. I don't know why my steps were so complicated, but next is train persuasion and influence structure. I learned from a guy, like seasoned sales professional. He said about like if you want to persuade, you have to have credibility, emotion, and logic to make people move. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And then in my father's 60th birthday, I got the whole crowd moving. And I was like, what happened? How did I do it? And then I understood and spent time reflecting on understanding the fundamental principles on how I got them moving so fast. And I believe that the principles are that you have to get their attention, explain the game, engage them, use credibility, emotion, and logic, and then get action. This is core for sales, hiring, leadership, and fundraising. So this is a very good skill to have. So steps go once again, get their attention first. Offer something they want to gain. Use credibility, emotion, and logic, and engage them in the topic, and drive a clear action that they can commit or commitment. Okay, second last. It's about understanding the dopamine slot machine loops and how to block them. So I noticed myself, like when I get in this mode of like seeking something, seeking, like trying to find something from my phone, that is where it all starts. And then I was like reflecting, like, what am I seeking? I'm actually seeking something that doesn't even exist. So it's a dead end. And I got the good feeling of like seeking is so damaging. And I think you have to recognize digital novelty gaps. Remove your easy access to those things and replace the feeling source with real activities. And of course, you have to protect your deep focus and work times. So steps are, notice when you start to see quick good feeling. Quick good feeling, okay? That's first step. Interrupt to love as soon as we can recognize it, or it will get worse by time. Identify what feeling am I trying to get? Like, is it connection? Is it joy? Okay. And then try to redirect that to a different kind of activity where you can still get the emotion, but you don't have to seek out novelty or these kind of illusions anymore. And then you switch to the new task or activity immediately. You make the access to dopamine traps as hard as possible is the last step. Like you had those dopamine traps, but you make the access to them very, very hard. And the very last one of this quarter's lessons is build product where users get the value with minimal effort. I realized that, well, our product is really, really helpful, but the majority of people are still not using it. There's only a few people who are using it. And then I realized that it's not about the helpfulness of your product. It's about how easily and effortlessly the user is able to solve one simple problem for themselves. So I should focus on ease of usage of the product, not the value. So solving one simple problem, how can I solve it more simpler and easier than anyone else? Not how can I provide more value than anyone else. So solve one painful problem with the least required sacrifice and effort from the user. Avoid feature bloat and complexity traps. So first, identify one simple and critical user pain, not two, not 10. Then check if your solution delivers 10x the value with less effort than anyone else. If yes, you can proceed. If not, don't do it. Focus on reducing the user's effort and sacrifice to get the value. So focus on the downside, the hard side, the boring side. Don't add value. Don't add features that are not making the easiness of the product better. So if they're making it more complex, don't add it. Focus on those things that are making it more easy to be used. You can get it faster, whatever the user values. Keep the product simple so users instantly feel the core value.